Hey, Howard.
In case you need a lawyer, here's my business card. I'm attorney Howard Ankin.
Oh, hey, Howard.
If you or someone you know has been hurt at work, Ankin Law can get the medical bills paid, the lost wages reimbursed,
Oh, hey, Howard.
and the compensation you deserve.
Hey, Howard.
We're one of the largest filers throughout the state of Illinois of workers' compensation claims. We're here to help. Call 312-6-million. Injury law made personal, that's Ankin Law.
From your favorite source for Chicago White Sox talk, delivering news, interviews, analysis, and more. This is the Sox Machine Podcast with your hosts, Jim Margulis, James Fegan, and Josh Nelson.
Thanks, Rob, and welcome to the Sox Machine Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Nelson, and it's Sunday night, February 22nd, 2026, as we bring you a new episode. What a start for the Chicago White Sox in spring training. 3 games in, and they have 3 victories. In this show, we'll bring you sounds from camp as we hear from White Sox manager Will Venable, pitchers Chris Murphy, Mike Vasil, and Sean Burke. James Fegan will join us from Glendale, Arizona to provide additional insight as he's our ears and eyes at camp. Jim Margulis has been tracking how the White Sox have been using the ABS system so far. We'll also take a look at the early StatCast numbers. Also, after a big weekend against top 10 ranked TCU, White Sox fans can start seriously thinking about getting their Roch Cholowsky jerseys made. But first, let's hear the latest from White Sox camp. Manager Will Venable is happy with how his team has performed to start spring training games. Sure, in the grand scheme, wins in the Cactus League do not correlate to wins during the regular season well, but the StatCast metrics for velocity, spin, and exit velocity are good indicators of how close a player is ready for the regular season, and also how they've improved during the offseason.
Great job. When we came in, we talked about these habits that we're trying to create, and so as we're evaluating these guys in the first couple games here, that's our focus. Obviously there's things at the plate and on the mound that are going to be important, and we'll continue to make sure that we're ironing out. But when we talk about first step off the ball for our defenders, first step out of the box, holding those guys to those standards, they did a great job.
One aspect that will be new for Venable is the ABS system, as Jim Margulis and Sox Machine is already tracking how the White Sox are faring, challenging balls and strikes. Venable explained the White Sox process in issuing challenges.
We have some guidelines that we put in place early in camp that these guys have an understanding of, kind of the foundation of our strategy, with looking at the AAA data and just being able to understand, who's been successful with challenges, who hasn't, what types of pitches, in what locations, and when situationally, are the best times to challenge those. So yeah, these guys have an understanding, and we want to just use this time in camp to really kind of fine-tune our strategy.
The other area of enforcement for this upcoming season is that umpires will be paying attention to where base coaches are standing, as they are required to be in the coach's box by first and third base. Now, this is not a new rule, but one that really hasn't been enforced and is now a focus for the 2026 season. Venable shared his thoughts about the new initiative to enforce the rule.
Well, we've gotten a bunch of different messages from the umpires as far as what it actually means and the technical definition of the box. Our understanding now is that it's really going to be, the depth or the proximity to the foul line and to home plate, where then you have space to go back away from the foul line or away from home plate. So that's what we're expecting. So it puts Jerson in a tough spot with runners at second base, but otherwise these guys will be in safe spots to be able to do their jobs and not get annihilated by a line drive.
Until he leaves later this week for the World Baseball Classic, Munetaka Murakami will be in the spotlight. In 2 games, Murakami is 2 for 6 with 2 RBIs. Venable is impressed with how well Murakami is adjusting to the majors.
I gotta give Mooney a lot of credit. Really, this guy is so committed and such a professional, and we've asked him to do some things that he hasn't necessarily been accustomed to in how he prepares, and his adaptability and flexibility to do those things has been awesome. He's that adjustability gives you confidence that he's going to be able to go out there and make adjustments during the year. So, he's just a guy that, even though he wants to play 9 innings every one of these games, we've got a plan for him, and he's, behind it and supportive of kind of what we've laid out for him, and he did a great job today.
In our last episode, we talked about the starting pitching competition and how the White Sox have at least 10 pitchers vying for a spot on the 5-man rotation. Left-handed pitcher Chris Murphy, who the White Sox acquired from Boston, made the start on Saturday against the Athletics. He went 2 innings, allowed 3 hits, 1 earned run. He walked 1 and struck out 1. Murphy shares how he felt the outing went.
That was just getting the feet wet. Goal today, had it written down, was first pitch strikes, get ahead of guys, let them put it in play at spring training. So get the fastball in the zone, get the curveball in the zone, get the curveball down, and I think we did that pretty well today.
Murphy also provided insight working with catcher Edgar Quero for the first time, and how the two used PitchCom to determine what pitches to throw in a crucial situation.
I was calling my game for most of it, and he had a PitchCom too, and I was like, hey, if you really think we should do something else, call something else. So there was an at-bat there, I don't remember who it was. I threw a fastball up with 2 strikes, 0-2, missed up, and then I called another fastball up, and he called a curveball down, executed the curveball down, got a ground out to short. So as long as we get to know each other, and that battery is going to be awesome.
Mike Vasil had to start on Sunday against the Brewers, in which he went 1 1/3 innings, allowed 3 hits, 1 earned run. He walked 2 and struck out 1. Unlike Murphy, Vasil didn't like the way he threw.
No, I mean, for me, it was just like the sinker was way off. But I think, there's only one way to go, and it's up. Make adjustments, work on some stuff, and just get back out there and look for some more improvement.
However, Vasil remains optimistic and is eager for his next outing.
Prior to this, was feeling great. You're always going to have those days, but I think for me, it's going to happen with working on the shape and command of it. I'm happy it's right now, and especially today. First one out there in games, so I think it's important that I was able to be in a game situation and experience that. Because now I've got some good stuff to work on.
Sean Burke didn't make a start, but in his first appearance out of the bullpen this spring, he went 2 scoreless innings, allowing just 1 hit, walking 1 and striking out 1. Burke is happy with how he is feeling physically to start this spring.
Today's probably physically the best I've felt so far in spring, just in terms of the body feeling good. So I think I was able to get ahead of guys, just kind of some 2-strike execution stuff I can clean up, but that's kind of comes kind of more as you throughout the spring. Obviously, you want to make strides and work on and get good results in the spring, but with the main goal being getting ready to go, taking care of your body and building up that workload so you're ready to go for the season.
The White Sox continue Cactus League action this week. All of these games start.
Big thanks to our sponsor, BetterHelp, for partnering with us for this important conversation about mental health.
This is Steve Smith here, former NFL wide receiver and host of the 89 show on YouTube. So having a counselor and working with BetterHelp, that gives you an opportunity to really start to unpack, but people don't understand when you unpack things, you also open up a box that you're not always sure what's inside. So I think that's why seeing a professional is extremely important. If you need someone to open up to, visit BetterHelp. That's betterhelp.com/89 to get started.
Around 2:05 p.m. Central Time on Monday and Tuesday. The White Sox are on the road. They'll be playing against the Rockies on Monday and the Mariners on Tuesday. Wednesday and Thursday, the White Sox are back at Camelback Ranch. On Wednesday, they'll be playing the Cincinnati Reds, and on Thursday, the Dodgers are the home team, but both teams do share that facility. So if you are visiting, as far as the White Sox in Arizona, you can go see them at Camelback Ranch on Wednesday and Thursday. Now joining me on the podcast from Glendale, Arizona is Sox Machine's beat reporter James Fegan, and from Nashville, managing editor Jim Margulis. And hello, gentlemen. The White Sox are 3-0 to start spring training. James, let's start on the pitching front for the White Sox. How have the pitchers looked so far?
Well, most recently, Sunday we saw kind of piggybacking of Vasil and Burke. Vasil said he thought his outing was pretty bad. He struggled with command. As far as like what his stuff looked like, it looked fine. Like he's at 95. But Burke probably looked sharper. Burke looked like someone prepared to, if he is the most unsettled spot in the rotation, if only because, like, one, they've already clearly queued up Shane Smith, Anthony Kay, and Davis Martin in that order, which is going to start on Monday at Salt River. And Eric Fetty, Will Venable said, like, the day he was their official, like, we expect him to be in rotation. Burke is kind of the one unsettled guy. He looked like someone who is a ready to hold serve. I don't know how you necessarily elevate someone less proven or like someone trying to crack into the role over Burke looking like he's touching 97 and throwing a much harder version of his slider than he was at the end of last year, which kind of settles into his general stance that he reclaimed it and was generally getting ahead of hitters. He didn't finish them off as well as he wanted to. And we didn't see like a bunch of changeups or anything like that, or even sinkers for obvious reasons. But it looked like he had his two best pitches working. So if he's healthy, if his velo is, and Burke's contention is that he wants to be sitting 97, not just touching it, and that he's slowly working his way up there. He looked like generally someone who you'd feel comfortable with that. That said, like, there are other guys who have been interested. Like Chris Murphy is this swingman that Will Venable says like is getting a shot to pitch in the rotation, and he did fine for his 2 innings. You saw Jordan Hicks come in and sit 99 and run a sinker kind of backdoor and get a reverse call over it that him and Quero were both very thrilled about. So he's looking like a legitimate bullpen piece. It wasn't like, proves everything wrong all the way, but like Ira Arte coming out and throwing 96. Okay. Yeah. Let's have a reason to, pay attention to you again. That looked great. So I think you haven't necessarily seen like the bulk of the, what you'd expect the opening day pitching staff to be. You haven't seen Sir Anthony Dominguez yet, or any of what we think the top 3 starters would be. And Jordan Leisure gave up a bomb on a fastball, which will happen to him in the best of times in his debut outing. But I think from what I don't think you've seen someone who's been like discouraging. And now I remember who I was going to say first. Tanner McDougal was sitting 98-101 on his first day of spring. Little aggressive young man. I guess it's technically topped out of like 100.7, but did 2 innings of that in terms of feeling good about having pushed someone who probably on the fringes of top 100 consideration to be on the Fangraphs top 100 list. Feeling pretty good about it. Clemente, like, obviously there's more refinement to going to that. You didn't see like necessarily like some of the changeup he's been working on. Maybe he wasn't like finishing his sliders for down low for swings and misses into 2. Who cares? He's clearly healthy and like breathing fire already. That's great to see him looking as crisp as he did. Does that mean he's going to work up to sitting 100s at some point? Does that mean he's just fired up for Major League Camp and we're already seeing his best bolts? Either way, probably good. I think his fastball will be effective at 98-100. Regardless.
Yeah, especially in the minors. Over on the hitting front for the Chicago White Sox, Jim, the White Sox looking at hard hit rates, so exit velocities greater than 95 miles an hour. Against the Cubs, 16 batted balls over 95 miles an hour. And then against the Athletics and Brewers, they had 9 over 95 miles per hour in both of those games. The White Sox hitters are making good contact to start spring training, Jim. They've scored 24 runs in 3 games. In your mind, how have the White Sox hitters looked early?
I mean, as good as their line, by and large. Batting 306 as a team, that's pretty good. Slugging 537. Hitting for power, stringing together the singles with their second and third stringers, which I think is, when you watch spring training games and you're of the mindset of like, I've seen enough. I've seen who I want to see in this game. It's all fringe players, organizational depth, non-roster invitees from here on out. And then the games like last maybe like 20 minutes longer than they should because somebody's having a bad inning or somebody's having a rough time. And like the White Sox are giving the rough time with like a barrage of singles and taking extra bases, running hard really well. Like they're 7 for 8 in steals, taking a lot of extra bases when it comes to going singles into doubles or scoring, first, third, second to home. you're seeing like the speed depth, the kind of the Birmingham Barons lineup, 2 championships in a row. That depth is showing up, like the William Bergoyas and the Mario Camillettis of the world, getting on base and then running like hell when they're on base. So like catches you up there, but I think, you're seeing also some pleasant surprises or like nice introductions from, Austin Hayes homered, I think, on the first pitch he saw or the first pitch he swung at. And, Murakami had a nice debut. Edgar Quero came out of the gate firing, with a, opposite field singles in the gapper and will also cut down a runner. So, there's really nothing you can, gripe about the offense aside from like Everson Pereira not, being able to deliver on the, live batting practice hype because of a side that's keeping out of action right now. But otherwise, looks great.
And on that injury front, James, is there any other injury news outside of Everson Pereira that White Sox fans should know about?
Not really, unless you count kind of Drew Thorpe being, someone we haven't really seen throw a bullpen, at least since camp has started, because he got the soreness flare up on him and get shut down from, ramping up. I think he was still playing catch throughout this process. I saw him even in a defensive drill. They're doing PFPs and he was like throwing at full effort. So that was encouraging, but those would be the other laggards at this point.
And then on SoxMachine.com podcast listeners, if you didn't get a chance to read it on Sunday, James also caught up with all the pitchers that are recovering from significant injury last year.
Not all of them.
Not all of them. A few.
Maybe Adams didn't make the cut there, but it's a lot to cover an organization's all their injured pitchers. Is usually multitudinous.
Yes. Other notes from these first 3 games, like for me, like Munetaka Murakami. Well, one, it was hilarious that he almost missed the start of the first spring training game because of a traffic accident. Playing games in Chicago, Mooney, you may run into that as well. So give yourself some ample time to get to Rate Field, especially if you do live in downtown. But Jim, you just mentioned as far as the offense and that Murakami had a good first impression in that first game. And it looks like we're going to see him about 3 more times before he has to leave camp and join Team Japan for the World Baseball Classic. What have you liked so far in the first 2 games from Murakami?
I think the contact was loud. The fly ball to center that Seiya Suzuki should have caught, lost in the high sky, but well struck on the right day, right ballpark. Like that's a homer to center field in a lot of places. So
didn't
based on
StatCast have it like 14 out of 30 ballparks that would have been a home run?
16 out of 30.
Like
and it was like 106 off the bat, I think. And he had another one that was 108 off the bat. Only looked out of sorts in his first plate appearance. He looked like a guy who showed up late, like, what do I do? Everything good. And like was chasing out of the zone. I think the first 4 pitches he saw, he was either offering it or checking up on. And then he had a ground or 2 that he tried to go to second on, knocked it down and had to settle for the out at first. So kind of looked like he was rushing himself early on and then settled into the flow of the game and was swinging at strikes and, not looking overmatched yet. I mean, he didn't really get anything crazy. He got like a 95 that he turned around for one of his hits. But, swung and missed a couple times, but also swung and hit loudly a couple times, which I think is the trade-off that you're looking for. So, fine so far. Reasons to be excited, reasons to keep wanting to watch him before he goes off to Japan.
And then for Edgar Quero, James, that second game, and I appreciate that you asked him about throwing out the base runner at second base on that stolen base attempt. For podcast listeners, if you didn't get a chance to watch that highlight, well, first, Quero had two RBI singles in that game, so he drove in 4 RBIs. But throwing out the runner at second, that base stealer had a running start, and Quero was still able to nail him at second base and even did the gun holster celebration of throwing out that base runner, which I enjoyed that from Edgar Quero. I didn't get a chance to see that a lot last year in his rookie year. But it seems like Quero, is it right to say, is carrying a little bit more confidence this time around in spring training camp, James, at least early?
Yeah, I mean, I would say he's the one. I mean, he's probably the player on the team who's talking like most about the playoffs. He's 22. He's fed up of waiting. So yeah, I would say that's fair. He obviously did a lot of work in the offseason that got to national play, and it wasn't just driveline. He also like saw different outside consultants for like his defense and framing as well. So he's definitely like, and he's aware that he went through the trade rumors in the offseason, and he's come out very motivated to one, he either is trying to win this catching battle or he knows like part of his future could be auditioning for other teams. So this is a guy who's like really motivated on top of, expressing a lot of confidence and interacting really well with everybody. I like it. I think like saying like this guy is aware he could be traded makes him seem like he could be distant in the clubhouse. He's not that either. He has a lot of reason to be fired up to show what he can do this season, and seems to be, and has done a lot during this offseason to be like, look at what I've done, look what I've been working on. So I think that lines up with what he's looked like, in one game, or just generally how he's talked. It's kind of funny to, Edgar says like he's feeling better with how he loads in his hips. Like obviously some of those hits were off fastballs, which is what he kind of struggled with last year. It is still like funny to be like, see Edgar Quero get like some clutch, like 2-strike singles so that he serves in the outfield and be like, wow, must be driveline, right? It's like, yeah, I feel like he's been able to do this for like the last 3 years, but he says everything's paying off. The results are there so far, and seeing him just like the cleanliness. I don't know if that's the right word for the transfer that he did for that. Like his movement is just like, you didn't see him like throwing the ball harder than you've ever seen it before. Just like his actions were just very efficient. It was like a very clean, fundamental catcher defense, and that's not that he wasn't capable of doing that last season, but just seeing a flash of that as his first impression, obviously very encouraging.
The other point, as far as like, because James mentioned Tanner McDougal and his velocity. I mean, that just jumps off the page. And it got me thinking, because we've been talking about, and we were even asked if you missed it, we did a AMA on White Sox Reddit. And one of the questions that we were asked was, who's a dark horse in making the 26-man roster? And I feel like the easy answer is pick one of these pitchers that has a non-roster invite or a minor league contract. One of these veteran guys is going to make the White Sox bullpen. But I'm wondering...
Feeling very attacked, personally.
Well, I mean, I picked one too.
All right, never mind.
We all did. But I'm wondering if we have any early contenders where maybe they thrust themselves into the conversation. I want to start with Tanner McDougal and go back to you about McDougal, James. That type of velocity is really hard to ignore. And we know that pitchers only have so many bullets in the arm. And if he continues to maintain this velocity, I mean, that's what jumped off the page last year with Shane Smith. Different circumstances. The White Sox had to keep Shane Smith as a Rule 5 pick, but he was throwing so hard and throwing so well. It's like, yeah, let's see if this guy could be a starting pitcher. This team's coming off 121 losses. Who cares? And Shane Smith ended up going to the All-Star game. If McDougal a month from now at the end of spring training is still pumping this type of velocity, is there any chance that the White Sox may have to rethink where they have McDougal? Is he the type of guy that you have starting the bullpen, and maybe in the next couple of years you transition him from bullpen to starting pitcher?
From what they have told me, no. Do I think they could just change their mind to some degree? I guess maybe. I would doubt it based on what they've said, seeming pretty convicted. I've prodded on the idea of like, do you introduce this as a bullpen? Do you see that as like maybe an efficient way to use his bullets? They've been very like, Tanner has done enough to earn the right to continue developing as a starter. And he has this inning space that we can like build off of because he just did 113 last year. So like, we're pretty confident we can use him normally. Whereas like, at least one element of Grant Taylor is like, it was going to be such a long road from how little he had thrown to like building him up. So like you feel like you're going to use multiple years in the minors of just kind of even getting him up to like what he's going to try to do this year for the first time, 100 innings. So I think not. And they've also, Tanner has been like included in the like Hagen Smith, Noah Schultz bucket of, you're not really auditioning for like one of these starting jobs. You're not going to start up here. Focus on getting ready. Okay. So Tanner is by all means showing out. covering him for 5 years now, I'm sure some adrenaline was pumping and getting a chance to pitch, in what feels at least like a major league game in many ways. I don't at least think from how they talked entering camp, knowing that he is capable of doing this. It's not like he hit insane career highs. He just looked like how he did. Like he looks like the Southern League playoffs just kept going. I wouldn't think that this flash would be like, oh, everything's changed. Now, we could go on for 6 weeks and he's got like a 0 ERA and is striking out like 40% of people. Maybe they're like, well, geez, this just feels stupid. And things change. But at least from how things are set out to prepare, I would say no, assuming he looks like a normal, good pitching prospect, but someone who's got refinement, growing nuances left to grow and stuff like. So I would say no, but to your point, who knows? Maybe like getting irrationally excited about spring performances. That's a spice of life, from what I can tell.
Well, I mean, this is elite velocity. Like, there's a part of me, I think, Jim, you mentioned that McDougal may start in Birmingham this year, but if he continues to pump this type of heat, I'm hoping you get a chance to see him in week 1 of the minor league season when the Charlotte Knights visit the Nashville Sounds. I just think this stuff is too loud to ignore. And this isn't like position players, right, that definitely need the seasoning. They definitely need the at-bats and plate appearances. Man, if you got the stuff to get major league hitters out, to me, it goes back to that, there's no such thing as a pitching prospect philosophy that's been, 20 years old at this stage? I feel like if this stuff's this loud and it's this good, we might be talking about a Tanner McDougal call-up before Memorial Day.
Yeah, I think, and him starting in Birmingham was just trying to figure out how many starters they're going to have in Charlotte, and then trying to figure out who could possibly feasibly start the season in Birmingham without it being an insult. And like McDougal was one of them, but like talent wise and where he is developmentally, like if he started the season in Charlotte, I wouldn't blink. He strikes me the way he's throwing, and let's say like he continues throwing this way for 6 weeks. If nobody else claims that 5th starter job, if like Burke looks shaky and Cannon looks shaky and like nobody else is claiming it, and like he's just doing everything he can, and he's already on the 40-man, it's like there is a case where they could say, yeah, you got to reward the guy who looks like he's got it all together, especially if it's it can kind of be used as a cudgel maybe against pitchers who had the inside track and weren't able to do anything with it. So it feels premature to start talking about him, but like certainly I think he has all the incentive in the world to keep doing this and make the White Sox change their plans, because as James said, like they have a pretty firm idea of what they want to do, but the White Sox aren't so rich in talent that they have to block them. That there are so many more deserving pitchers who need those major league starts than somebody like McDougal, who should be getting them by the end of the season. So if it happens to be like months earlier because he's showing out and nobody else is doing it, like fine, go for it, reward somebody.
With McDougal, as far as the secondary stuff, I mean, the fastball velocity, it jumps off the page, but as far as like his spin rate, as far as with his slider and the ability to move either horizontally or vertically, is that close to being major league quality, James? Because I'm obviously like thrilled about, wow, he's got 1+ pitch as far as fastball, but what about his second offerings?
Like on a raw stuff level and like spin rate and movement, like his secondaries are insane. It's just that he hasn't been able to, he's kind of fits into this bucket of guys. And I think Shane Smith and Davis Martin are similar, except like McDougal had a better straight changeup before he got hurt. But after TJ, like pronating and changeup, like doesn't feel natural to him anymore.
Right. Okay.
The way it used to. So he's been working on something in, camp that is kind of like that alternate changeup variety. It's seam effects. I don't think we saw him use it too much today, if at all. But like there's a little platoon split developing with him that's based off the general fact that he's mostly just had to pitch like fastball, curveball against lefties and work up and down, and doesn't necessarily have like the same side to side dynamic that he could do with having his slider and curveball against righties. So that's kind of what you'd be, maybe a project that's what you think about a lot. If you say like, well, we want this guy to have a year in the minors, is developing that more, or seeing ways for him to kind of work arm side a bit more than he can, because it can kind of feel like he's beating his head up. It's the way like his pitch count can run up, is him like having to throw like the perfect curveball like multiple times in a count to like get these, and I feel like those can be like kind of your longer at bats that would make them struggle to like keep up like a deep workload of innings if you like shove them in the rotation right away. So, but in general, I think like his breaking balls are awesome to the degree that like they're doing all the work without the benefit of a changeup. Like, yeah, it's amazing how much it does. I think it's 3,100 RPM on the curveball. Like that was a big thing of his draft profile, was that he was getting like 300 RPM, like even before like his breaking ball really had a defined shape. So like it was like this big kid, he throws 95 and like has raw spin that like out to kazoo, and
changes weather patterns.
That was like why it was just like at the time, especially back in 2021, because the same draft as Montgomery, it's like, well, it's kind of cool that they're just taking these swings at like raw materials, so to speak, because like he was the COVID really affected his high school career. He pitched like very little in his draft season, so it was like, as much as like his dad was a professional pitcher, and like I think Josh Towers is like a close family friend who coached him, or a big leaguer, so he has like more refinement, but it was still like you took this teenager who didn't really get to have a senior season off of just like these great cool ingredients, and you're going to develop him. So to see him like come through, even though it's like kind of multiple periods of White Sox player development that he's overlapped, it's kind of like this exciting, project coming to fruition that like, obviously their draft has moved more and more in that direction of being prep focused, but this seemed like an early example of it, the drift that we're seeing that's more encouraging now.
So James has done nothing, Jim, to convince me to calm down about Tanner McDougal after his first outing.
I don't want you to calm down at large. I'm just saying he's probably not going to break camp with the team. Like I'm on the board of Tanner McDougal enthusiasts, and have been for a while, even when we weren't having our meetings in public back in 2023.
So I would like the White Sox to keep an open mind then on Tanner McDougal. Like, I get it. If you want him to get a little bit more extra seasoning, get more game action, and go through game situations, send him to Charlotte. Selfish reasons. The Knights and Sounds have StatCast. I know the Knights do, Jim, but we'll be able to track Tanner McDougal. All
AAA parks
do. So we'll be able to track on how Tanner McDougal's pitches are faring in AAA. So that's for selfish reasons. Send him to Charlotte so Jim can see him in person the first week of the season. I just would like the White Sox to keep an open mind on Tanner McDougal, and someone I'm really going to be like, tune in for the rest of the spring training games. The other that's making a great first impression, especially for White Sox fans on social media, is Sam Antonacci. Now, in a previous podcast episode, when we had one of our best friends of the show, Jim Callis, join the show, and we talked about the Arizona Fall League and how well Sam Antonacci performed down in Arizona, Jim, we had this conversation about how would the White Sox handle if Sam Antonacci took a leap forward in 2026 in the minor leagues between Antonacci and Chase Maedroth. That first at bat against the Cubs, hitting that home run, awesome bat flip, by the way. But an exit velocity to be 109 miles per hour, I didn't know that Antonacci had that type of swing in his game. He's 2 for 4. It's early in spring training. He's also got 2 stolen bases. He's a grinder. He's a gamer. But if he's got a little bit more extra pop than Chase Maedroth, and he bats left-handed, like, when do we seriously have that type of conversation, even though Chase Maedroth has been a quality player for the White Sox early?
I think when Antonacci gets introduced, if it's not like a Maedroth injury opening the door at second base for like a lot of playing time, I think Maedroth has dibs just because he played pretty well considering the injuries he is playing through. He's banged up pretty much all of the year, and I think he showed a willingness to post, which garners respect. And if he comes back with a little more power that he was missing because of those injuries, and he plays a good defensive second base, I think better than Antonacci, although like the second base I've seen Antonacci play is fine. Like I haven't seen anything that jumps out as like Rocky, and like, you know, half dozen games I've seen him play there in person, but like it's but I think Maedroth hasn't done anything to lose the job yet, and I think Antonacci still, you know, he can benefit from reps at Charlotte, and they have playing time for him to move around, especially if they want him to get different positions. Like they can flex him out a lot of different places there. So I don't see Maedroth losing that job, but yeah, I think should it be a case where Maedroth, you know, gets banged up again, and all of a sudden, like they're considering, do we want Lenyn Sosa as our everyday second baseman? Like maybe, you know, Antonacci is the at least involved in a timeshare there, because I think his game is pretty solid. Like there's a question of whether his game will work at the major league level, just because, you know, it is, you know, 109 mile per hour exit velocity aside on that one, which, you know, if he's got more of that in store, then great. But what he's shown so far is more of like a flat, short level swing that's more about spraying the ball and more about like prolonging at bats. And like, that could be the kind of approach that is more or less mitigated by big league defenses and big league positioning and major league pitching. And he's just more of a okay on base guy, but not making a huge impact, not providing a lot. You know, that's, I think, the pessimistic view of what he looks like. But if it is a case where, you know, he can punish mistakes, and he does have that ability to be short to the ball, but also, you know, barrel it up and sting pitchers that way. And he plays an okay second base, and he's able to get on base with a variety of walks and hit by pitches and mostly singles. I think the White Sox would be willing to try it out, just because it doesn't seem like he's going to be somebody who looks overmatched a game at a time at the major leagues. He might go 2 weeks and realize like, oh, he hasn't really done much of anything. Yeah, and then you start considering your other options. But he doesn't strike me as somebody who, at least at the plate, would be in over his head against major league pitching. I think my bigger concern would be like the base paths. He is a very aggressive base runner, stole a lot of bases with determination, kind of want to, and elbow grease versus raw speed. And we've seen that be a recipe for disaster against major league defenses, major league catchers, pitchers with good pickoff plans. So like that would be my bigger concern, is whether he can stay within his game on the base paths versus at the plate. But if Maedroth is perfectly healthy, I imagine he'll be like the, if not everyday second baseman, most day second baseman, and seeing like how much more they can get from his profile before they bring in. And I think, you know, if Maedroth kind of hits a wall in terms of, or hits a ceiling, I should say, with what he can do, then maybe it's time to introduce Antonacci and get like a good, real hard-nosed platoon there to really make the most out of the position.
And Will Venable likes Maedroth in the clubhouse, right? Like Maedroth has a good clubhouse presence within the current White Sox.
They love that little dude.
They love that little dude. Okay. All right. So Maedroth not in serious consideration of losing starting job. And again, like Jim mentioned, Lenyn Sosa is still around without options. So not a clear path for Sam Antonacci. Not to say you can't get excited. Hopefully he has a big spring. But out of these two, like Antonacci, maybe he could force the issue. There's just been a lot of talk and a lot of hype since the Arizona Fall League with Sam Antonacci. But Tanner McDougal, podcast listeners, James has already been on the train. He's been the conductor. I think we need to hop on. Like, this stuff is too loud and too good to simply just pass off as, oh, it's spring training, he's going to go to Charlotte. No, when you're pumping this type of heat and you have this type of breaking stuff, the White Sox should seriously think, keep the door open for McDougal to make the starting rotation.
Wouldn't the conductor be responsible for operating the brakes if it's in the best interest of safety of everyone aboard?
Well, don't press the brakes.
All coal, no brakes.
Let's just let us fly.
I don't think the conductor takes suggestions on driving from the passengers normally, but all right.
The other thing that we've seen early in spring training has been the ABS system. So again, the automatic balls and strikes, catchers, pitchers can challenge. And we've seen some challenges early on. Jim, I think we're going to see this just for all teams, just to get an understanding how the system works and how well that they are challenging and trying to get an eye for it. The younger players are used to it, but the older guys, the veterans, this is something they have to learn. it's early, but what have you learned so far from the early ABS usage from the White Sox?
I think it lines up with what I saw in Charlotte and what I've seen in Nashville over the years, which is, especially since they've gone down to 2 challenges, which is being pretty cautious, especially early in the game. But should they have 2 challenges in the later innings and, they're thinking like, what, we can't carry these over the next game. May as well use them. You see more shots taken just because they may as well lose them, especially if there's like a comfortable lead. I think in like 1-run games, like the one Drew Romo challenge where it was like 1.5 inches below the plate, and he really dragged it upwards with his with the way he caught it. Like, I'm curious to know whether he thought it was a strike or whether it's just in his mental math of, I know we have 2 challenges remaining. I know what count leverage I should be focusing on. This is that call. Let's see if I can get it, because chances are I'm not going to need 2 challenges over the course of the remainder of the game. That kind of quick calculus, I think, is has been part of the process for the last couple of years now. And I imagine teams have more or less a book, have like a run matrix, a run expectancy value. And I'm really looking forward to, because Tom Tango, I think he's senior data architect, his title at MLB, he's already getting into run expectancy for counts and runners on base. And when you have, early game, late game, tied game, close and late, I'm really curious to see what kind of leverage tracking they can do with catchers based on how they challenge, when they challenge, who has gotten the most out of it, and who is maybe letting opportunities pass them by. I think there's like a really cool opportunity just to see this thought process really being borne out in the numbers. But yeah, I've enjoyed the rollout so far. And there's one, I had to go back to the camera because it was Braden Montgomery at the plate and they challenged an outside fastball on him, and the catcher tapped his helmet, but Montgomery also tapped his helmet, but it was more of an adjustment, because I said, did he challenge a ball against him? Like, I had to double take, like, did he assume it was a strike and just went to tap his helmet reflexively, but he actually just was just adjusting it. There was an actual distinct tapping motion, but I do think most players have that down where it is a distinct tap. But yeah, seeing everybody reach for their helmet at the same time after the pitch came in made me think, like, is it gonna be like check swings where hitters will call for their own check swing appeal even if it's a ball, just because they're inadvertently putting the matter in somebody else's hands when the call initially went in their favor.
During James's appearance with Len Casper and Darren Jackson, if you didn't get a chance to listen to that, we have uploaded to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/SoxMachine.
Hi, Len.
So you can go ahead and, hi, Len. Thank you, Len, for the call out. Appreciate it. As James said, the check is in the mail.
Sorry, Len.
Len and DJ were talking about that scenario against the Cubs. Like, the Cubs could have challenged sometimes against the White Sox. We heard early in the podcast from Will Venable, James, like, the White Sox have guidelines on when they're going to be challenging. Is it as simple as to say that we're not going to see the White Sox challenge until post 7th inning? Like, is the goal for the White Sox to iron out all the situations in spring training, and then come the regular season, they're going to have a process in place that, as fans, we're not going to see challenges until really high leverage situations, maybe in the last 3 innings?
I mean, based on the first couple of games, I would say they're already challenging pretty early, at least the first one. You see them kind of level off after that. Will Venable didn't really get into many details about, he said that there were guidelines they gave them. But beyond the fact that, like, it will probably be a rare instance for a pitcher to call for a challenge, he didn't share a ton other than say, like, we have a process, a very careful org that has people versed in data and business speak tends to talk about things they do. So at least sounded like legit.
Understand. It is a new metric that we'll be tracking this season, because we've had the challenge system, and you can go on baseballreference.com, and when you look up a manager's win-loss record, you could also look up a manager's challenge ratio and how successful when they ask for a replay on other calls in the game. Now we're going to have how well our catchers doing with the ABS, which is going to be fun.
I really wish that Yasmani Grandal was here for this system, because I'm curious, like with his plate discipline and also his, I guess you could say stubbornness or confidence, or just like, his kind of being set in his ways, would he be somebody like taps his helmet and uses like 2 challenges in his first at bat on borderline pitches and just like blows him for us? They're like, hey, that's your problem. I gotta look out for me.
Rereading what Venable said about it, he was obviously a reference to the fact that they had it as a trial early on in Charlotte means that they have like at least some trend data that they're already pulling from on saying who's been successful at challenges, who hasn't, what types of pitches, locations, and what situations are best time to challenge. Is there what the guidelines they gave out were based around.
Okay. Well, I guess we're going to have to keep a close eye and learn what the White Sox tendencies will be, if we have any concept. But like Jim, to your point, like with Tom Tango and run expectancy, the challenges are supposed to be pretty instant. So unless you got that active on a tablet in the dugout, knowing the situation, I don't know what call from the dugout to the catcher that you would want them to immediately challenge if it's close enough, if it merits, right? Because there's no communication. Like, we'll talk about college baseball in a moment, but there's some college baseball programs where catchers have an earpiece and a coach has got a walkie-talkie. So if you had ABS in college, that coach, if they think it was close enough to challenge, could say something in the walkie-talkie and the catcher could hear and make that gesture. I don't think MLB's got that type of technology right now, so I'm curious on how that's going to be relayed from the dugout to the catchers if the dugout wanted them to challenge.
Is the dugout on a delay? Is that a case where the data they're getting is a little bit like there's a little bit of margin? Yeah. So I think because I've sat next to the dugouts in Charlotte and even Birmingham when they have like the data coming in on iPads, and you can get some explosive arguments from the dugout. Like I saw Nicky Delmonico get rung up because like they could see the pitches they're missing and saying like, that's, he wasn't like waving the iPad in his face, but he was using that data to be very, very angry when they didn't have the right to challenge in AA. And that was, I would say, within like a second or two of the pitch coming in. But yeah, I think they could delay it a little bit further just to make sure that it isn't, it's purely catchers, pitchers, hitters are the only ones in it. I'm curious if like Marlins catchers will look to the dugout reflexively, right, because like they're not allowed to do anything for themselves in a couple of years. But I think it should be more or less, the way people want replay to be run, which is like you want there to be a camera shot to the dugout and a coach on the phone being like, do we challenge or not? I think they want to be to correct the calls that get the immediate spins in the batter's box, or like the hesitant throw back to the pitcher because they thought that they were like 99% sure that call was wrong.
Got it. The last thing for the White Sox spring training this episode, White Sox have a number of players participating in the World Baseball Classic. James, do you have the dates of when guys are leaving to join their respective teams in the World Baseball Classic?
So Murakami is leaving on the 27th, so his last day in camp is the 26th, and then the last day in camp for Sir Anthony Dominguez with Dominican Republic and Curtis Meade going to Australia is 27th, and then the day after that, 28th, is Antonacci and Teal. That's their last day before going to Italy.
Got it. So that would be
Team
at least
Italy.
a couple weeks.
Not necessarily if they're going to Italy. Maybe they should. They have fun. Good social media content. But wherever Italy's playing.
All right. So final week for the World Baseball Classic, guys, before that action starts in March, and we'll be keeping an eye on that as well and be talking about it in future podcast episodes. So we'll be seeing a lot more Edgar Quero, Corey Lee, even Drew Romo behind home plate while Kyle Teal plays for Team Italy.
Even Josh Bro.
And Josh Bro.
Some bro action.
The last thing we'll talk about in this episode, and it's gotten White Sox fans very excited, especially on Friday night in a national televised game on Fox Sports 1. Roch Cholowsky put on a show, hitting 2 homers, one of them a big grand slam. It was a huge weekend for UCLA as they swept TCU at home. A pretty resounding statement series win for the Bruins, as they'll get consideration to be re-ranked again as the number one team in the country, as we'll get those polls on Monday. For the series against TCU, Roch Cholowsky went 4 for 12. 3 of those 4 hits went for home runs. 7 games, 6 home runs for Roch Cholowsky. And Jim, I know what I said in our previous episode, that I wanted to try to calm down the excitement for White Sox fans. We still have a long way to go. A lot of things could happen. Now I'm saying you can go ahead to Grandstand and get your Roch Cholowsky jerseys made, because I was trying to hold off until face quality pitching like TCU. No offense to UC San Diego and Tulane. They do not have the pitchers to adequately challenge Roch Cholowsky. TCU does. They got burned. This upcoming weekend, I'll be joining Roch down in Texas, seeing him in person against 3 SEC schools. And if he crushes that weekend, then there really is no doubt. And the tea that we are hearing from reliable sources within the White Sox almost makes me think twice that I should go bother seeing Grady Emerson next weekend when I'm in Texas. It really feels like, even though it's late February, we have a good understanding that the number one pick in the 2026 MLB draft is going to be Roch Cholowsky. So are you ready for Roch, Jim Margulis?
Yeah, I mean, like, I was thinking about the jerseys and thinking that like Caleb Williams did not have the same number in college that he had in the pros, and so people who jumped the gun had look a little bit silly or look a little bit like a knockoff. But yeah, he's wearing number 1. I imagine if he wants number 1, he might be able to get it, or the White Sox might want to make that happen, and Will Venable might not mind. So probably a safe number, at least.
He just knows he has a number. It's so out of mind.
That's the one. That's the one area where he holds his ground. Yeah, no, it's based on the footage, based on what the defense as well. I mean, he's playing both sides of the ball, and that's what makes him so compelling. Is not just showing out as a hitter, but also playing a premium position really well. Yeah, great. As I think with the first overall pick, I'm kind of the mindset where sometimes it's not bad to be second, just because if the number 1 pick takes a no-brainer, then it's a case where everything's opened up and every decision is defensible from there on out. And in this case, sometimes you want the number 1 pick and you want to pick that no-brainer yourself. And yeah, he's on trajectory right now. And I think it's more a matter of doing your due diligence with everybody else, Emerson and Curiel and anybody else you've had in your top 10, just in case disaster strikes or some kind of injury strikes, and you have to worry about him being physically limited and playing the way that he did before. But otherwise, it's pretty cool to have a number 1 pick for the first time in decades, and have a player like this who seems hell-bent on making an easy decision.
Yes, that's the one thing that I've noticed, and even in his post-game interviews as well. And I can't wait to get a chance to get a one-on-one interview with Roch this upcoming weekend. Just the impression that I get is being the number 1 pick is not good enough for Cholowsky. The way that he's playing right now, and especially the way he reacted after hitting that grand slam, they remembered as freshmen a couple years ago getting their butts kicked in Fort Worth, Texas against TCU. None of those guys are currently on TCU's squad, but they use that as a huge chip on their shoulder to prove a point to the rest of the country that, because again, there's a lot of naysayers, because it's UCLA's a Big Ten school. Come on. They're going to beat up on a lot of teams this upcoming year. They're not that good. UCLA wants to prove, and they're really going to be headstrong this upcoming weekend against 3 SEC schools. I'm expecting them to play at a high level to prove that they do merit all of the preseason consideration of being a national championship contender. And Roch's just playing at a level right now. It's I don't want to be the number 1 pick. I want to win the Golden Spikes Award. I want to win the Dick Hauser Award. And I want to hoist the National Championship Award and be part of the dog pile in Omaha. He wants it all. And that's pretty exciting, and it just adds more hype and even to the legend of Roch Cholowsky. Again, the merit, hopefully he stays healthy. But I guess I could start looking at other targets of the White Sox in the second, third, and fourth rounds. Maybe, James, I'll have to drag you along the suburbs of Chicago to see how some of the other guys of the White Sox area code team see what Landon Tomey is up to these days when he starts playing in early March. That will do it for this episode of the Sox Machine Podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you just discovered the Sox Machine Podcast, you can subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts, such as Spotify and Apple Music. You could also watch our videos at our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Sox Machine. James has been doing an excellent job in getting that footage for us down at White Sox camp. So we've been doing a lot of shorts, YouTube shorts, where you're getting snippets as far as interviews and pregame and postgame interviews, and even videos from the clubhouse as well. So if you aren't watching our videos, you can do so at youtube.com/Sox Machine. You can follow us on social media. We're on all the platforms at Sox Machine. You can follow James at JR Fegan. You can follow me at SoxMachine_Josh. We are on Blue Sky at SoxMachine.com. James is JRFegan.SoxMachine.com, and I am Josh.SoxMachine.com. If you enjoy our work and want full access to all of our coverage of the Chicago White Sox, Major League Baseball, and the Major League Baseball Draft, sign up to become a Sox Machine subscriber at SoxMachine.com/products. Thank you to our Sox Machine supporters. It allows us for James to go to Arizona. It allows me to go to Texas this upcoming weekend to see what we are assuming is the future #1 overall pick in Roch Cholowsky. So to our supporters already, thank you so much. And if you do enjoy our work and you haven't subscribed, please do so again at SoxMachine.com/products. Monthly plans start at $5, and if you sign up for an annual subscription, you do get a discount. The Sox Machine Podcast is a production of SoxMachine.com. You're on for all things Chicago White Sox baseball and part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Alongside Jim Margulis and James Fegan, I'm Josh Nelson. Thanks for listening and watching.